Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a great week. Today we have got an affordable foundation review for you, and it is the much hyped CYO Lifeproof foundation. Now, I've had this in my drawer for months. I've actually wanted to try this and wanted to review this for a long time, but we have had problems. Now, if you don't know this foundation, I think that Taylor first discovered how amazing this foundation is, especially for an affordable foundation. When she reviewed it, it's like, I mean, that girl has done some foundation reviews, so you know, she knows what she's talking about. And this was one of her absolute favourites. It's only £7, so very, very affordable. However, there are huge issues with the shade range of this foundation, and not only the shades that are available. I think there are 15, which for a drugstore foundation is a pretty normal number of shades, but there are huge issues with, one, the availability of the shades in store, which is my biggest problem. I've been to several boots trying to find this foundation, trying to find a shade that will just work closely enough for me to make a review. There are only ever 3 or 4 on the shelves, so although there's 15 in the range, there seems to only ever be 3 or 4 that you can actually get your hands on and try. So that's been a huge struggle for me. So eventually I have now picked up the shade 110, but because this was much more towards like my summer shade, I had to wait until my body had found some sun before it was going to be feasible for this to look, you know, human on me. So here we are, we're ready to go ahead with the review. Let me give you all of the deets on screen about the claims of this foundation. It sounds right up my street. It's got coverage, it's got a dewy natural finish, it's supposed to be long lasting on the skin, and it's £7. So there's that. So without further ado, let's get it on my face and see what we think. Is this the holy grail of drugstore affordable foundations at last? Is this it? Let's find out. So I'm just going to prime my skin with my usual MAC Prep and Prime Radiant Yellow Primer. If you haven't watched one of my foundation reviews before, I usually use this primer because it is a kind of consistent part of my reviews. Like, I know this primer, I know it's not going to make anything funky happen. I've never had an issue with this primer and any foundation, so we know if something weird or bad happens, we know it's the foundation. Likewise, if something good happens, we know it's the foundation and not because I've put, you know, an amazing primer underneath. Okay, so that's my skin all primed. So here is the foundation. The packaging is not my vibe. It looks and feels affordable, I guess, is the thing, which is, you know, why it is affordable. So it's not trying to pretend to be a high-end foundation. The packaging is very simple, feels light, and yeah, just nothing luxurious about the packaging. The pump is a bit clunky. Again, the pump feels like an affordable foundation pump. It feels a bit clunky. It feels like it might give up the ghost at some point. So here is the foundation. It looks kind of a medium consistency. It is moving, but it's not running like water, so it kind of looks like it's a medium thickness. It has a kind of fresh skincare-y type scent to it. So I have only sort of whacked this on my face briefly once, so I don't know which method I prefer, sponge or brush, so I'm going to do half and half, starting off on this side with my sponge. And as I said, this is going to be too dark for me, but it is what it is, you know. I have also heard that this foundation oxidizes, not necessarily that it's like oxidizing a lot darker, but that it sort of starts off looking very grey and then warms up a bit, so we'll see about that. Okay, so actually kind of matches my body, so there's that. So it is looking very, very dewy right now, but obviously it will dry down a bit. My neck, I swear, does anyone's neck actually get any sun ever? because I know mine doesn't. Mine does not get any. So right now we're kind of looking at a light to medium coverage, still see redness, still see beauty spots, etc. So I'm going to build that up with my sponge because it says, well, depending on where you look, I think on the Boots website it said it was a medium buildable, but on the actual CYO website it says it's a full coverage. So either way, I want to see if we can get closer to a sort of medium to full. So at the moment it's looking okay. Definitely not crazy too dark for me. It's definitely too dark for my neck, that is for sure, but what isn't? It's definitely looking a little on the kind of neutral side as opposed to my body, but it's really not too bad right now. You can see it's obviously darker than my face. Good old SPF. Okay, so at this point we're kind of looking like a medium coverage. It's going straight in my smile lines, but most people do. So on this side you can still see we've got all this redness poking through. I'm going to use my brush now to see if we can build coverage a bit quicker using a bit less foundation. Almost everything on my palette has gone now, so I think that was about like 3 pumps. So it doesn't appear to be like a foundation where, you know, 1 drop is going to be doing your whole face. Not if you want it to be, you know, a good amount of coverage anyway, like I do. Okay, so it's really not having an issue with brush strokes actually. I'm kind of surprised because a sort of more dewy finish foundation usually has a lot of issues with brush strokes, but at the moment I feel like my light's a bit too bright. Yeah, I'm not really having issues with brush strokes. I don't think it's necessarily giving me a lot more coverage using a brush. I think we're still at a sort of light to medium with this initial layer, but I probably used less, which is what you'd expect. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but the sponge side is looking much dewier than the brush side, even though I did this side first. So if you want a really, really dewy finish, use a sponge, which is what people say, isn't it? But I don't always necessarily notice a difference doing that, but with this it does seem there is a difference. But I don't know if you will be able to see, but there's just, it's not making brush strokes at all. It's blending like a dream. Just not really getting the coverage that I want on this side. I feel like there's more coverage with the sponge, which is unusual, but it does happen. Sometimes it's just about the consistency of the foundation. It's sometimes it needs to be pushed into the skin rather than buffed. Yeah, I feel like the sponge I'm finding it easier to build coverage with the sponge, which like I said isn't unusual, but it does happen. So I'm just going to go all over and try and even everything up on both sides with my sponge. So my kind of initial thoughts at this point are that it is hella dewy. We'll see how much it dries down. It's definitely going straight into my smile lines, like in a dramatic way. But it looks really nice and smooth all over, which is nice. Like, it's not really exaggerating texture, which a foundation this dewy usually would. You know, it looks really smooth, and actually the shade, now that I've caught the sun a little bit, is pretty bang on against my body. It's obviously darker than my neck, but such is life. But yeah, I think this is probably a definite good summer shade match, depending on what happens as it oxidizes, if it does on me. Let's have a good lights down moment. Look how dewy. I don't think it's going to stay like this. I've never seen someone look this wet before, but it definitely looks very, very dewy right now. Very dewy. So yeah, I'm going to do the rest of my makeup, see how it dries down, see if some of this extreme dew has gone, and see how it's looking in 30 minutes or so. See you in a few. Okay, we are back and it has probably been nearly an hour. I've finished the rest of my makeup, took some flash photos, which looked really, really good. This doesn't have SPF in it, so you would expect it not to give a white cast, and it definitely didn't seem to give one. I've also done some more filming and I've just been pottering about. So we are now at about an hour, so we can actually see how this foundation has settled in. And as you can see, it's still very dewy of a foundation. It's still, for me, definitely more of a medium coverage. Ignore this cheek area. We've had some challenges which are not the foundation's fault. It's definitely soaked into smile lines and it's looking a little kind of cakey around my nose area. The forehead looks pretty good. Lines and everything wise in between my brows looks good. My chin area, which is sometimes an issue for me, looks pretty good. The shade does not seem to have changed. Let me zoom you out so you can see for yourselves. So yeah, the shade against my body looks good. It just generally looks really glowy and healthy and dewy and nice. Around here I've seen foundations look better, like around my nose and in my smile lines, but for an affordable version of my like dewy foundations that I love, this is definitely a decent starting point for me. Really nice and smooth, not exaggerating lines other than my smile lines, which most do. Really nice and glowy and healthy and luminous, and not a bad shade match right now. I'm really hoping nothing terrible happens. I know people say it oxidizes, so yeah, I've got a pretty busy day planned today. My kids are having all their haircuts. We're going to be having a barbecue, so I am going to be out and about. It's warm, but it's not hot, especially not when you compare it to some places in the world. So we're going to give it a moderate test, I feel like, and I will be back in the usual sort of 8 hours to see how it's worn and to see if we are still liking it or not. See you in a few. Hi guys, welcome back. As you can probably tell, the weather has taken a turn for the worse. 1 minute you're outside having a barbecue, the next you're back inside in your jumper, and that is just how weather is going right now in the UK. So anyway, it is about 7 PM now, so the foundation has been on for a good 8 hours, and well, I'm looking in my mirror just here, and let me just also say, well, let's zoom in so you can see. I've had sunglasses on, which seems unlikely now, but I did have sunglasses on this morning, and so you can obviously see here where my sunglasses are, but that really is not bad. Like, this might be a good foundation for glasses wearers, because, you know, I have big plastic heavy sunglasses and there's only a slight wearing there, so that's just little bonus for my glasses wearer girls and boys. General wear is good. My chin looks good. I have got maybe a little like of a shiny nose, which is the only area, so I didn't set with powder and I didn't use a setting spray today. Literally just my under eye area and my nose, a little bit on my chin, and top lip is where I set with powder, just my concealer areas. Little bit shiny on my nose. I will say that it took a long time to dry down, this foundation, but it did. So I'd say it finally ended up as like a natural finish as opposed to being very dewy. But it no longer feels tacky, and let me tell you, I have really mummed this foundation. Like, I've been with my kids all day. It's the school holidays here in the UK. I've been with my kids all day. I've been picking them up. One of them, my little girl had a bit of an accident today. She fell off her playhouse, and so I picked her up, and you know, we were face to face for a long time, and there's just nothing has rubbed off, or I didn't notice any transfer on her, which is really surprising for a foundation that is really quite on the luminous side. I don't know if it's necessarily still dewy, maybe it is, but it doesn't feel it. It doesn't feel sticky or tacky, and nothing's really coming off on my hand when I'm pressing my face, and it's certainly not coming off or coming away where I'm, you know, touching it or anything like that. These sunglasses looks like some kind of weird dodgy reverse nose contour, and it's not a good thing. I will say that as far as lines, it did quite severely soak into smile lines. Let's just give you a real tea. So it definitely soaked fully into smile lines. My forehead lines have definitely looked better, and this is where I think I rubbed on someone, and you can see it has actually rubbed away a little bit there. But yeah, everything applied nicely on top of it. I do have some natural lighting footage to show you. I didn't find this oxidized on me. I am now getting a bit more tanned. I am kind of in between my summer and winter shades at the moment, so I'm probably like an NC 30 to 35. I'm probably in between those two shades right now, but I love the finish of this. I think it's a very pretty finish. I think it's really smooth. I think from like this distance away it looks really good. When I look really close up, it is exaggerating my forehead lines, my smile lines, and the lines on my chin. But that's a fairly small thing that I can live with, and I certainly think this is the best affordable foundation that I can remember trying, honestly. Just really because I love the finish so much, and it has worn very well. But as we know, the big issue here is whether you can find a shade that works for you, if there is a shade that works for you, and whether actually that shade is going to be in stock anywhere. But if you can, it's definitely worth the £7 to give it a try, because I think it works beautifully, and I've seen it working for lots of different skin types, oily skin and dry skin. It feels light, it feels very comfortable to wear, it's got a lot going for it. I absolutely can understand the hype, and I think it's, like I said, it's certainly a foundation I would wear again, and it's certainly the nicest, most flattering foundation from the drugstore that I can remember trying. So there you have it. I hope you found this useful. I once again just want to say I'm sorry if the lighting isn't as good today as it has been. This is my first foundation review in my new space, or product review I think, in my new space, it is a work in progress. I'm just trying to get the balance between it being too dark and you guys really being able to see, and there being too much, you know, light directly on my face so that you can't really see the products. But we will get there, I promise you, and I'm just trying to be as descriptive as I can to kind of account for that. But any questions, as always, hit me up in the comments down below. I hope you found this review helpful, and I would love to see you in a future video. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.